All right.
Right, we're live. So this is Spoken Openness episode 5
Episode number
with
5.
Farid and Ian.
How's it going?
Um, just gonna get into the flow of the conversation. It's going. I'm happy we're doing this once again.
Mm-hmm. This was the
Um,
first. This was the first week, I guess, where we kind of set days.
yeah,
We set
we're getting into
days,
the structure of it.
and we're following through with the days. We had a little. I had a little bit of technical issues. I switched out my microphone because some construction workers decided they would like to do something. I have no idea what they're doing, but so hopefully we don't get too much of that sound.
We'll be fine, yeah.
So how are things? How's it going? How's the week?
A little busy, but
Mm-hmm.
great week. That's
I've
truth.
I've been
It
deep
not done.
into. Sorry?
Not done yet. Still, I feel like
Yeah.
it's a long way till Monday, even though it's
Yes.
Thursday. Yeah,
My my I had a feeling that was associated with tasks or things that I wanted to complete that weren't
hmm
necessarily clearly defined, but there was like an association of what I wanted to, how accomplished I wanted to feel across a various number of ongoing um, things, responsibilities, efforts, all those things.
yeah.
And I don't feel like I've reached that state. So that is accompanied with pressure to jump on that for the next rest of the day and tomorrow, which will probably happen. So I feel good about that.
It's
Um,
great. I'm behind on to do things. I need to. I need to sit down and really tell myself that every time that I feel I'm behind on something, it's actually ground zero again. Like I need to reprogram everything. Because I trick myself into thinking like, okay, tomorrow morning I'm gonna do what was left of yesterday that I didn't get to do.
yeah,
And then I'll do everything that I wanted to do tomorrow. But I can't just like squeeze more in the day because then the next day I always have like a thing that I didn't get to do.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But but I tricked my brain into thinking I'm doing it, but it was meant to do yesterday, but I'm just gonna do it fast, and
mm-hmm,
then
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna carry on with the day and everything I had to do. But that's not realistic at all. So I'm starting to kind of get into the habit of every morning or the night before
Yeah.
be like, this is a new beginning. I need to reschedule the whole thing, like everything
Yes.
else.
Yeah. 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 Because you need to adapt as it goes on, and like you
Yeah,
said, sometimes you're like, I'm gonna throw this in the morning, but you've already packed basically like your maximum output possible,
yeah.
maybe, or variables also change.
I
Um,
yeah, or I could pound in like oh, twice the work in one day, but then the next day I'm gonna be like, fuck the
right.
day.
Yeah.
I don't want to do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. That's
So I need to maintain that balance and be gentle with myself, I think.
yeah.
Otherwise
Totally.
I crash and
We
then I
talk.
take a whole day off. It's the
Yeah.
worst.
We talked about that. I don't know if it was on a stream or if it was before that, but just on designing your productivity potential based on um, like a multivariant outlook on it, and knowing that getting so much done at one time might be super productive for that day, but then it'll have negative consequences in a rebound effect of just, you know, motivation and having trouble getting back into that advanced flow. So it is interesting. And what's
Yeah,
hard is that different work requires different, it's like different aspects of the mind, different energy, different types of
totally.
motivation. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to know what will carry over, or what tasks might be related in terms of kind when you're doing work. If it's like a
Yeah.
super task orient heavy, maybe you'll have more energy for creative work but
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel like creative work should be done early in the morning, and then as the day goes by, you can do more mechanical tasks. I think it's
Hmm.
easier to do something mechanical when you're more tired. I found that easier.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like I can't handle it, or I don't have the right energy for it, so creativity won't be
Hmm.
optimal. So I just don't tackle it altogether.
So you'll
It's weird.
start with mechanical stuff, and
No, the
then
other way.
the other way around. You'll start with creative stuff. You'll start with creative
Right.
stuff. See, I find that if I start with the creative stuff, I never want to start it because I have sort of that creative, because creativity is the act of pulling abstract things out of sort of a non, like it takes work of manifesting something, right?
Hmm.
It's that it's you have to manifest ideas and something that isn't predefined yet, whereas mechanical tasks often are more predefined, and so you know what has to get done, and it's more about the act of physically going through the motions,
Just
if
executing. Yeah.
executing. And if I have something that's creative, I always tend to have a lot more resistance, and sometimes to trick myself into getting progress made on a project, say even if it's like an essay or something that's writing based.
Mhm.
I find that what helps me is to find what of that can be mechanized and what can be mechanical in that, and then just get those things done first, so that it leaves sort of, it makes me feel like, oh, 60% of this is already complete. I have this much done, even though it's basic. There's not a lot of creative choices made, but it just allows for me to feel okay.
Yeah.
Now it's less risky, because
I
it
think
feels more
totally. Yeah.
complete.
Feels like that's kind of like a different thing.
I see.
Because
Yeah.
maybe you're starting the creative process by doing the slightly more mechanical things first,
Yeah.
so that you're already immersed
Right.
in the process, and then you get creative and you play with it.
Yes. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if I do a financial spreadsheet,
Uh huh.
the first thing I do in the morning is that.
Uh huh.
Then I'll I'll have that motivation that I got this done and it was easy, it was mechanical, I just did whatever I had to do. Then I'll reply some more emails. It feels like I'm getting things off the list,
Mm-hmm.
and it's easy to do because it's just a thing that you have to execute, right?
Yeah.
So, but then when I get to the creative thing, it feels like I'm a little drained. That those mechanical things kind of pulled me a little away from the optimal creative state, or the optimal
Right.
performance to do that creative thing. Could be writing, could be um, content, or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if I trick myself into thinking that the only thing that I have to do is that creative task, and I'll have the morning for that.
Yeah.
So I'll have my morning routine, I have a nice breakfast, I feel energized, and then I feel ready to tackle this. And then if I do it while thinking I'm in the best place to do it, because it's
Yeah.
the first thing, my energy's right, and then it's easier to do the mechanical things after that. It doesn't feel like There's some nervousness that I'm not gonna be in the optimal place for it because it's just a mechanical thing. I could be even
Right.
ready to go to sleep and still pound in that work
Yeah.
and cross it off the list. Feel like that.
Yeah, that's something to explore. I think I don't know if I've necessarily consciously thought about the order in which I do things necessarily, but it's more organically flowed from,
Yeah,
um,
it's weird.
and that is something to consider. And it also depends on the type of work. I think that also carries through with audition prep. One of the things that I've been working on a lot this last week is my video keeps doing that, and I'm wondering if it's because the battery doesn't have a lot of battery life left, even though it's plugged in, and it just
Hmm.
isn't able to charge it fast enough than the power usage used. So that's going to be something that's annoying kind of throughout this.
That's fine. Yeah, if it something happens, we'll work it out. I might get
um,
some black screen.
One of the things I've been doing a lot this week is I've been working on developing business. I've been trying to develop actor services that all happen online. And one of the things that I'm trying to incorporate into it is research to design the perfect workflow that's based on a number of different interests. This podcast brought to you by construction. Uh,
It's very light.
oh, nice. I hear it.
Yeah.
Nice. A microphone switch. And I feel like the one of the things is memorization and the how people memorize and time on time off work, kind of the what's it called, the Japanese technique of time management for workflow for work. Do you remember the name of it? We've talked about this before.
Oh, Pomodoro technique.
Yeah, Pomodoro technique and stuff like that. Trying to
Hmm.
incorporate that into service workflows so that it maximizes what can get done in the shortest amount of time. And something
Yeah.
else I should also bring into it is thinking about order of effort put into something based on thinking of creativity versus mechanical, because memorization is super mechanical and it's super exhausting. And so if
Yeah.
you're somebody who's busy and you just get 8 pages at nighttime and work so hard, it's so tiring mentally. Memorization is such a funny thing that you're able to just take something and just store it slowly with repetition, and then you have it in there. But then after you're done that, it's exhausting. And so figuring
Yeah.
out,
There's
yeah,
some crazy techniques for memorization.
I
Like,
know.
have you heard of the mansion? Just like building a real house,
Yes, yeah,
and then
yeah.
you can store things in different rooms, and then you can have like drawers inside the rooms, and like
Yes.
that's
That
great.
comes from alchemy. That comes from there's a really sweet book that I want to read. There's a sweet, cool book that I want to read.
What is it?
It's Francis Yates' The Art of Memory.
Okay.
And I've kind of seen some excerpts of it, but it's basically tracing memorization and a lot of stuff that is from the alchemical and esoteric kind of channels of history. And
Nice.
it seems super interesting because we talked about this last time, but it's new that we have this technology that we've outsourced a lot of our memorizing to, which is beneficial for some things and it has negative implications on the other hand. But in the past, that's why these things came about, is because there was no technology. So these techniques are super fascinating. Do you want to just quickly give a summary of sort of the mansion technique or visualizing for the purpose of memorizing?
Well, I don't really know what the technique is.
Okay. Okay.
I just know that master memorizers, which is that is that
I
a
think
right thing to say? I don't
sure,
know.
yeah.
Um,
Professional memorizer.
Professional memorizers,
I like
they
master though.
they build mansions inside in their imagination.
Yeah.
but it's really specific so that they can just go inside the room and they have different furniture in different rooms, but every
Uh-huh.
room is different, every furniture is different, and you
Yeah.
have to be really specific about what furniture you're putting things into, right?
Right. But what
Like
does the
what
furniture
type of wood
represent?
is it?
What does the wood represent? What does the furniture represent in the mansion?
It represents the place where you store the memory.
Right. So each piece and each piece within that mansion represents something you're trying to memorize. And so you can package it depending on what you're doing, but yeah, the idea is that if you have one room, that's maybe one collection of ideas or one collection of things that are related or sequenced.
They're related totally, yeah.
So the wood, the grain of the wood is a part of that idea. Maybe it's, the
Exactly, yeah. It should be somehow related. And that's where the techniques have like many different sub techniques, you may say.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe some people like relating with the first and last letter of the word. Like, um, I don't know if I would say an example, it would be, I think, very dumb, but you could
Mhm.
maybe make a visual relation.
Right.
For some people, it's more language-like, but a
Yes.
visual, like what you were saying, maybe the wood represents all the memories that have to do with childhood because you grew up in nature. And
Right,
so
right,
every
right.
memories of your family in nature are in that room that has only wooden furniture.
Yeah. But the right and and it's so cool if you really think about it, it's so cool that you can do that. And also it is very personal. I think that's what you know you just brought up there was that idea that there's a lot of principles that could be applied, or a lot of techniques that people have discovered based on experience that have been passed down through history of like, this is what helps me in sort of that relational technique of you have that image and how does that image relate to the idea, and that
Mhm.
relationship is very personal and abstract and can be designed based on whoever's trying to memorize.
Yeah,
um, but yeah, that's how do we even get
it's
onto that?
crazy
How do we get onto
because
that?
because we were talking about handling your day's work
Right, right,
by
right, right,
different
right.
variables, different variables. One variable was doing maybe creative work first or mechanical work first, and then you
Yes.
mentioned memorization, which is very mechanical, but it's very exhausting.
It is
At least,
exhausting, yes. And I think I just quickly brought it up because I wanted to consider it in developing the workflow for services of the company that I've been working on. So that's how it came about. That stuff is so fascinating though. The Do you think um what do you
yeah,
think about about the potential of the mind? I think that idea has been debunked. That thing that's like we use 1% of the mind and it has 99% untapped energy. I think I think
yeah. I think that's a myth already
yeah.
debunked. Yeah,
I think I think what that means is just that not all the neurons are firing simultaneously, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you could use them all at the same time for your own like purposes or design. They all have different
yeah.
functions that occur at different times. But
Exactly. So the idea of we should be using 100% of the time of our brain 100% of the time, that's just still, yeah.
yeah,
I
just
don't think that even happens in some altered states. I think it's
no,
still
no,
it's just some parts of the brain.
no.
Except I think, for example, with sugar, the whole brain lights up in MRI scans.
Does
It's
it?
like I've seen some pretty crazy imagery of like a complete brain reaction.
Right.
It's not like it's oh, I'm not saying all the brain areas are gonna be working,
Right, right,
but
right.
it's like a whole.
Right.
I'm sure with
Definitely
other
def
substances as well, but
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely a focus that I didn't know about was the dopamine and reward system signaling, which happens massively with sugar because it's a
Right.
drug. Sugar is a drug. Sugar is a massive
For
drug.
sure. Yeah.
One of the it what it's what's crazy to me is this classification of drug and the way that societies consider the classification and the way that we name things as a food versus a drug versus a tea that makes you sleepy versus a it's like so arbitrary and so weird. Even exercise changes state, and that makes you create endogenous chemicals that are drugs that are. Anyways, the sugar thing that I did want to mention was, and I just want to, just because I find this so funny, is that the sugar response in the MRI scans is indistinguishable from cocaine. It's just
Mhm.
slightly different in terms of degree, which is also the same, which I think I've brought it up, of when they do tests on the results of advertising on brain states. And I think the study that I saw was when
That is so crazy.
they
Yeah.
had someone in an MRI. These people who don't eat, say, I think it was McDonald's, maybe not. Uh, they were inside the MRI machine, and these are people who don't even health, not even people who don't go to McDonald's or necessarily. They showed them images of or advertising of McDonald's, and the dopamine and reward system pathways light up as like potential just from seeing the commercial. So
Yeah.
even though they're not somebody who likes it or enjoys it, could even be bloggers about how horrible it is, they still have
Right.
the reward pathways result, which is that shocked me. That
I'm sure
shocked
that
me.
has a lot to do with novelty. Maybe
Right.
you'd have the same
Familiar.
reward when someone tells you, "Hey, I have some news," and that's all they have to say. You're already in it.
Totally. I think that what I thought you were saying was what we were talking about last time about when something's familiar, maybe it was sometime previously. When something's familiar, you necessarily have sort of a positive reaction to it. Even it doesn't quite matter what it is, that face study where if you see faces over and over again, you'll rate them more attractively if you've seen them before, even if it's the same face. So maybe there's that effect that has to do with familiarity, but that element of news, we're so programmed to want some like news represents what should I know about, what should I be aware of, is there something that I need to know, like what
Mm.
is there a thing happening,
Am
like
I missing out on something?
am I missing out? But yeah, there's the missing out, which is sort of social, I guess, and sort of a that's separated, I think, from also the danger evolutionary reward pathway. That's like, what might save me? Is there danger? What's
But there's great danger in not knowing,
yeah, yeah.
because
That's maybe the biggest danger.
information is power. Yeah. So if there's information available for you, you should want to know it at all costs.
Yeah.
It's like, and then you decide if that's useful information. But maybe that's why, you know, everything that's prohibited, it's also extremely fascinating for anyone
Mm-hmm.
that can't have access to that information or experience,
Mm-hmm.
because you want to decide for yourself if the info is useful or not. So if that's why when you're with a friend and they're like, hey, you know what? And you're like, what? They're like, oh, never mind. You're always pissed.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, no, you have to tell
Yeah.
me now. You have to tell me. Like, there's no way back.
Yeah.
And
Or
it's,
don't think of a green giraffe with sunglasses on.
I didn't get that. I didn't get
Everybody,
that.
if you say don't do something, everybody wants to do it,
Okay.
or it
Yeah.
happens. Or you tell a kid
Hmm.
like, don't go in there, they're gonna go in there.
We're gonna go in there for sure.
Yeah, because we're curious and we want to know why. Why?
Mhm.
What's the reason behind it? Information gatekeepers.
Yeah,
Information gatekeepers.
I like that.
Yeah. But I also think that maybe there's individuals who also feel safe by having prescribed, and this goes back to ideologies, people who have prescribed information gatekeepers. I forgot that phrase. And they enjoy just going, "Excuse me, gatekeeper, what's the thing? Thank you." And then they go back with their life. Or is this information
Yeah.
useful? No, back to my life. Or is, I guess, maybe the meditation bug, or experiential or individual experience based evidence that we kind of have the bug for. I think we both value something that we've experienced as an individual, as opposed to just heard about, or someone said or told us or got from an information gatekeeper. So maybe that, I think that definitely spreads across personality types, but
Yeah, and it has a lot to do with the difference between wisdom and knowledge. There's a great quote. I think it's from a movie, the Warrior or something. I'm not providing very detailed information. I'm sorry, but I do remember this
that's
scene where
okay.
he's working for the master that's gonna teach him about
Yeah.
present moment and like to be. Anyway, he's cleaning a windshield.
Oh, swipe on, swipe off.
No, no, no. He's cleaning
Karate
a
Kid.
windshield, a car. No, he's cleaning a car windshield.
Okay.
Windshield? No, the glass.
Yeah.
Okay, so he says, "Do you know what's the difference between wisdom and knowledge?" It's super simple. Why am I doing this?
Are you not talking about Karate Kid?
No, I'm not. It's
Okay.
the path of the
Sounds a lot
warrior or
like
something
Karate
like
Kid.
that.
Okay.
It was first a novel about a I don't remember the name of the guy. He was a gymnastics Olympian,
Okay.
and he had a bicycle crash.
Oh,
And after that bicycle crash, all the doctors told him he couldn't even walk again.
that's rough.
But he made it in like 6 months. Like it's
Yeah.
super crazy recovery story where he met this
Hero's journey.
master and he taught him to be a I don't dude describing it or putting a
Right.
label to what
Yeah.
he taught him to be it would be dumb, but you get the idea. It's a meditation
He was like
and
a teacher.
like
He became
a
a teacher.
spiritual warrior thing. Exactly.
Right, right.
But then there's this cool scene where he's like, that he has him working for him and like servicing people in the gas station. He
Yeah.
just goes, "Do you know what the difference between wisdom and knowledge?" He's like, "Do you know how to clean a windshield?" And he says, "Yeah, of course." And he throws him the tool and he says, "Wisdom is just doing it."
Uh-huh.
And I like that. I like that because it's like from experience, you get a different kind of information that goes beyond
Yes.
just the text, just
Yes.
the content of the information or knowledge. It
Mm.
has to do with what's in the practice, what's in service, what's in
100%.
action.
And that yeah, totally. And that's the thing we talked about, or that I keep bringing up about even sentences or phrases that you've heard that you just adopt and you just know, and then all of a sudden sometime it becomes personal if you really understand it from an individual perspective. And that's the same with information, that it can be wisdom, or what is it, wisdom or knowledge?
Yeah.
Was that the so knowledge is info memorization, wisdom is having an embodied understanding, a personal embodied understanding.
Exactly. I
Uh,
like that.
um,
Internalizing the knowledge so that it's practical in your life design or life experience, so that it permeates in your example for other people also. I think it has to do also with like leading with example and not with words, because words can be very profound, right? But they also can be very profound when they come from someone that you know is speaking from experience. It's a whole different it's a whole different consumption of the information
Right,
from the receiver. Yeah.
but I think a problem that happens there is that there's the originator of the message, then there's the transmission of the message, there's the technique of transmission that can sometimes dilute the message, and then there's the receiver of the message that can interpret the message sometimes differently than the sender intended. That's I talk about that so much in communications. But the thing is, I think that there's that hermetic phrase, which is something like "Don't speak wisdom into to an ear that doesn't want to hear." I don't know what the
Yeah, yeah.
you
It's
gotta
also like
love.
don't.
I think I think this. The thing I like about this podcast is every single reference is butchered.
Yeah, and I
But
don't
that's
think
real
we have
life.
the need.
That's real
Yeah,
life.
I don't think when we have the need to credit every single idea. I know you do
Yeah,
that a lot. I
yeah,
try to avoid it because it's also getting into a terrain where, um, I mean, if the idea is really specific, if it's a quote,
yeah.
but we could be freely talking about anything and not be like, oh, this is this guy's ideas, and like,
No, I hear
if it's
you.
necessary, yeah,
But one thing I agree, but I also think that one thing that I love this flashing blind. It's like a
yeah, it's
disco. Is when I read something or I listen to something, I love references or just something that can hint
exactly me too. Yeah,
towards something that I can research. So even if
exactly.
so I think even if someone can look up like movie where guy
Yeah,
lost his
they'll
legs
they'll
and
found
then
it.
they'll
Yeah,
find it
spiritual warrior
first
thing. Yeah,
first
for sure.
Google result. Google is
Hmm.
so crazy these days. I remember like Ask Jeeves was pretty bad. Early Google, some like I remember when we learned how to do search terms, we used like brackets and like we used different there was
Yeah.
like a technical way to search.
Hmm.
But now
There's
now you can just be like you could even have like you could be like a guy who hurt ouch and then spiritual
Mhm.
became fighter and then first result is like
Right.
the thing that
But
you
that's once you know how keywords work, I think, because there's a
yeah
lot of people that, of course, older people, but they're like, "Dear Google, I have a question." The all in the Google search bar. I'm sure there's a lot of grandmas and grandpas out there trying
yeah
to talk to Google through the search bar in a personal manner.
that is true
And a lot of people, and that's of course an exaggeration, but a lot of people use words like "off" and "da" and uh,
right
and
but the thing
words
is you
that are
you
not useful
can
to pound in there.
the thing is you can do that now you could that before it wouldn't even show you anything if you put too many unnecessary words because it was looking for
Mm,
the exact phrase in websites like it
right.
would look for the
Mm,
exact whereas now it extracts the keywords and then will even show you it in the list it will say underneath like these words are
that's
shown and
great.
then
Yeah.
it'll something will be
What's
crossed
missing?
out and it'll be like this is missing do you need
Mm,
that and you can it's crazy it's
yeah.
crazy but so now you can even and some people what surprises me is some people don't have that feeling of immediate access to whatever they need in if it's like in a workplace or somebody's like hey do you know how to do this technical thing or I think we've talked about this before it's like I don't
Mhm.
know how to um, it's so easy and I do this sometimes sometimes I ask people to help me out when I could just easily find it out myself but things are so accessible
Yeah.
that you can find a forum a YouTube video something so fast and learn
Right.
anything now and we that's something that's only used 1% of the potential I
Yeah,
think
even us that are reflecting on this, we could have learned so many things from the internet that we haven't learned already.
yeah
And we haven't. It's
hmm
like, it's all about curiosity.
yeah
So, 11-year-olds are doing high figure businesses out of selling homemade slime on Instagram.
Yeah.
And those kids,
Homemade
slime,
slime. Okay.
yeah, like like for
Okay,
kids to
okay, like
play, like
putty. I love that stuff so much as a kid. That stuff, those like
yeah, and
the
the sound
the
that it
putty,
makes is very pleasing for a lot of people. So
so
they do
satisfying.
some videos of the thing they made,
Yeah.
and then they sell that online. And there's some kids, like 11-year-olds, that are doing more money than we're doing. And out of their phones, only their phones and their parents' Wi-Fi. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, like your own mind is the limit, your own curiosity, your own willingness to execute.
Yeah. I agree. What? How the problem is, here's the problem.
Please, I love it.
I only, from now on, I'm only going to point out problems.
Nice.
That's not true.
Which are only gonna bring more problems and more
Uh,
questions.
what do you, okay, let me rephrase. This is hard to phrase. Because
Yeah.
there's so much information and we've talked about this before, you have to curate, and curation nowadays doesn't mean collecting as much as it means blocking out or preventing the input of certain things. It's what's it called? There's a word that
Selective ignorance.
selective
Is that it?
ignorance, but also um, I'm not going to
Il
find the word, but
Illumination by elimination.
eliminating. Yeah, sure. I like the elimination by elimination. Say that 20 times fast.
Yeah.
That is now what you need with curiosity, because my problem is, and I have a reading list of, I have like 60 books that I need to read, that I want to read, that I'm fascinated
Of
by,
course.
that I've ordered used a books, different sources. I have like 30 of them already available, that are like the most
That's
fascinating
great.
books that I could find on the internet across the last 50 years.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
tons still there, but it's endless is the point. The point is that it's
It
endless.
is.
Uh, and for someone who is curious or interested in subjects and ideas, the internet now is about what don't you search.
Exactly.
And because maybe because it's overwhelming in its potential, it stops people from doing anything, or at least me, speaking from experience, it stops me from kind of getting into something, because I go, what am I not getting into if I'm focusing on this thing right now? I could be, learning Japanese, or I could be selling t-shirts,
Yeah, yeah.
or I could be on a forum trying to make contacts, or or I could
Yeah.
be, it's yeah, it's overwhelming.
All the potential is overwhelming. I think
Yeah,
the key in this,
it's a good.
problem, or I think it has to do with just self-awareness, the importance of self-awareness, because um, there's kids that know what they want to do. They know what they want to happen in their life when they're 10. I wasn't that type of, well, it's
I don't know if I
it's
trust people.
weird because
I don't know if I trust people
it
like that.
changes. Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna trust you. Are you sure? Are you sure
But
that's what you
that's a
want?
great advantage.
It is an
Would you agree
advantage.
that's
It is an
a great
advantage.
advantage? That type of early clarity,
I'm just
that's
jealous.
what
I'm just
brings,
kidding.
dude, of course, yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying that's like the only way, or that those kids have made it for life. They're just
Yeah,
kids that have extreme quality, and I guess most of those kids are kind of like getting it imposed from parents or something, and they're like following along the line, or
definitely
like,
influences. Yeah.
yeah, of course. And
Yeah. What I think is positive in that element, and maybe I'm drifting and just kind of maybe moving along to something else, but I think that when I see like a 10-year-old who knows what he wants to do and is interested in an idea and is pursuing that idea, there's one of those that feels super positive and awesome and cool, and then there's another one, and maybe sometimes it's like philosophical or when it gets political, but when there's like little kids like spouting phrases that they clearly just memorized from their parents that are like very opinionated or very something, I go,
mm,
whoa, like, whoa, this feels really scary. or just
Yeah.
even if they get praised, and I'm not gonna like bring up any subjects, but you see like on Facebook and YouTube, like a little kid going like sentence, 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 phrase, phrase, phrase that's been memorized and like super passionate and like serious about it. And then everyone's like, whoa, this kid is so enlightened. Brilliant kid. What a fantastic kid you've raised. All this stuff. And I'm like, this is,
Mhm.
it's a little bit scary. And while the sentiment might be positive, sometimes I feel uneasy about that. And I think that that is
Yeah.
that's increasing in,
Yeah,
and maybe
I
it,
think
and
it's increasing too.
I'll just tag on social media and YouTube where kids are getting such ingrained ideas from sources and just staying on those sources at such a young age and then being
Yeah.
like, you know, yeah,
Totally.
little soldiers.
And I think that's natural to kind of imitate knowledge and go from memory at first, and then you start building more of your own
Yeah.
opinions. But also, I think a phenomena that goes along with that is that when you first you know you don't know. That's the first thing. Like you know you know nothing, but then you start knowing a little thing, and you feel like you know a lot out of that
Yeah.
little thing. It feels like one of the first enlightenment processes that you live are super strong, and even though it's just a tiny bit of the puzzle that you got a little bit assembled, and you already feel like, oh, I know now, I know.
Yeah.
And
And
then but then that happens again and that happens again, and then the more you actually know, the less you feel you know, because it's so much out there, like recognizing that.
yeah.
Because
Here's
yeah,
the
I don't know.
thing. I totally agree. As long as you don't get into an echo chamber, which happens so much and gets reinforced by social media, and is engineered by the social media platforms to be able to market to you better. But when you so here, do you think? And maybe I'm wrong, but I would say that I went through the main know-it-all phase as a teenager, and I think that's like the most common, I would say, time where, you know, you feel really empowered by what you know, and you think like, you think you know everything, or
Yeah.
you feel like you're empowered by what you know, and that that's the way that it is,
And that you need to share it. You need
and
to
then you need
share
to
it.
share it. Yeah, and nobody and like yeah.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Um, but
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong here. One of the things that's happening with social media and the internet is that that is getting happening at a younger and younger age as people consume these sources on their phones on different platforms and then get super justified in these ideas that they feel like that maybe that stage is happening earlier. Do you think that that's maybe, is that a plausible hypothesis?
Yeah, I mean, we already mentioned the internet is crazy. So that way, I think that will
Yeah.
produce crazy people. Because if you're consuming craziness, then the probability that you'll go crazy and you won't even know it, it's super high.
Yeah.
Is that it? Is that around? Is that a
Yeah.
generalization of what you were saying? Like, of course.
Yeah, but I think it's good to try to pick apart because I basically made a claim. I basically made a claim, and I need to back it up with different things that could result in the claim. So hold
So,
on.
what's the simplest form of the
Right.
claim? Go to the like the essence of the claim, or
Okay.
the
Okay.
yeah.
One element that happens is, okay, I have two supporting evidence for that
What's the
claim.
basic affirmation?
Okay, the basic affirmation is that the age at which people feel empowered or feel like they have an understanding of the world and how it works is decreasing because of social media. So I guess that's the
Decreasing.
claim.
Okay.
So the average age that people feel like they know it all is decreasing because of social media. And I guess
Yeah, I
two of
would
my
say.
supporting claims are, the first one is that because social media produces echo chambers, that when you get embedded into an echo chamber at a young age without recognizing the existence of echo chambers, or how certain things function, and knowing that what you're seeing is just maybe a small perspective, or a very channeled and
Exactly.
narrow perspective, you can feel like maybe you know how things work at an early age because you're exposed to all that. The second
Hmm.
the second point, and I feel it disappearing in my head. No, here it is. It came
It's
back.
there. It is there.
I
Yeah,
literally
nice.
saw it going, and then it just popped back. Um, is that social media also produces this thing where people can speak to anybody and mention anybody and have access to anybody and feel like their voice has equal credence or has equal value than everyone else on the internet, because everyone on Twitter is the
Exactly.
same. Everyone on
Hmm.
Twitter is the
So
same.
credentials don't matter.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, you could be a 10-year-old and be in an echo chamber of flat
Yeah,
Earth and be like,
exactly.
you
I was gonna
don't
mention
know
flat
anything.
earthers. That's why they exist, of course.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
so those are my two supporting claims for that for that hypothesis.
I hope we're not offending any flat earthers out there. We respect their.
No. Hey, all of you flat earthers out there, you guys are so cool. You don't trust anybody, and I mean this genuinely. You guys don't trust anybody's information. You're out there trying to
Yeah,
trying to calculate using
it's
your,
inspiring. It
you
is.
know? Honestly, you guys are cool. You're trying it out. Just don't
Hmm.
yell at people who think it's a ball, and keep living your lifestyle, and that's whatever. That's cool. I think that you're completely wrong. Of course, like it's so wrong. Although those videos are so fun to watch. The
There,
videos,
I haven't
cons-
seen the
you haven't seen any?
conspiracy flat Earth videos.
Man,
Um,
conspiracy videos are really fun. This is a different topic,
yeah,
but
it is, and
I guess I that's kind of all I wanted to say on that. I think on the previous discussion, unless
I guess just going back to the fact that there's more of an early age opinionated. What's
yeah,
that?
early age opinionation.
I like
Opinionation,
the quote.
opinionation.
I'm again not attributing it properly, but maybe it's general enough, so
That's
I
okay.
don't need to. But
That's
it's
okay. Common knowledge.
you're entitled to your own opinion, not to your own facts.
Yeah.
And people feel their own facts. People would literally say
Right.
every mind has its own truth.
Right. It's my truth.
It's my truth, and you have your own truth, and we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
No, that's not the way it works.
uh, See, yeah, and that's such a massive subject, and truth and epistemology is so
Yeah.
crazy. Um, I always get epistemology and etymology confused. I meant epistemology. Etymology is the study of words, and epistemology is
They're good.
strategies
Yeah.
for coming to truth. And I always
Mhm.
switch those up, and I feel like an idiot sometimes when I hear myself back, and I'm like, how do we know what truth is? The etymology. And I'm like talking about
I
words.
don't really use those words on a
Uh,
regular basis. Can't
um,
recall the last time I said.
uh, because here's the thing. The whole postmodernism and the concepts of that truth and reality and methods for determining reality are subjective, and that like the way of talking about truth and reality is engineered by dominant forces. That's all a power game, and the language used is all to maintain hierarchies. All of that stuff is very interesting, and there's a massive argument that can be had about epistemology and about how truth is defined,
It's a whole conversation.
but we need to agree on something, and we need to all have a common understanding about what reality, some fundamental aspects of reality, and
That is common. That it's the same for everyone.
yeah, and you can't, I'm sorry, you can't use the my truth thing for everything.
Yeah.
But I think in some, there's a lot to be said about personal experience and life experience that should be considered on a variety of subjects or topics. But
Yeah.
there's a limit to that. And I think we are coming to an age where that limit is thrown out the window and anything is anything. And that's the thing. People don't agree on the facts.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
people are confusing facts with opinions.
Yeah.
I think that's it. So we at least need to draw a line between facts and opinions.
Lines are oppressive, man. Drawing lines is oppressive. You're gonna
Well,
draw lines.
I want to oppress the fact that we need to establish a distinction between opinions and facts, because
I agree. How did
Yeah.
this come about? This came about because people can get into
Social
echo
media,
chambers online, and they can disagree about what's even a
ideology.
fact. Yeah. Can we go into can we talk about conspiracies for a second?
Please,
I just want to say that I love conspiracies.
dude.
Right? And when I say
Yeah, me
when
too.
I say conspiracies, I'm gonna say conspiracies, because
The great conspiracies, not the little ones. Like
I
the
love
flat Earth
I love
theory,
all
or just all of them.
conspiracies. I love all of
Okay.
them. The thing is, I find
Yeah.
one reason because they're so fun. They're so fun to read.
They're
To
fun
read in. They're
to
so
discover,
fun.
like,
They're
yeah.
like,
And
maybe could this be?
dude, there's the dopamine thing that we're talking about, the
Yeah.
information thing. Like, dude, I'm discovering this, and it's
Yeah.
and somehow you take a victim approach to it. Like, the government did this to us as
Right.
civilians.
Yeah.
They're pouring fluoride into the water so that we all in a long term
Calcifies the pineal gland.
they lower the population in the long term, and like yeah.
Yeah. The
Could
other
we talk
day.
about
The other day I
like what's
texted you.
craziest?
Hold on, I just wanted to say some. The other day, I remember I texted you because I was at the grocery store and I was buying toothpaste, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Dude, does fluoride calcify the pineal gland?" Because like, the problem
Yeah,
is,
but my answer is I don't want to take the risk. If I can get a fluoride-free tooth, I've been
Dude,
on
I'm doing
fluoride-free toothpaste
I'm on fluoride.
for like 3 years now.
I'm on the
You're on
fluoride. I'm a
Maybe,
fluoride.
maybe that's why you're slow sometimes. in
I'm a
this conversation.
fluoride-
Just kidding.
Yeah, I'm a fluoride proponent because
Mm.
I just think after reading the studies and all the stuff, I just feel like, who did the studies? It's the government studies. That it's
They're
just
manipulated.
it benefits the development of why did I say canker? Not cankers. When you go to the dentist, cavities.
Cavities.
They prevent cavities. And
Yeah.
I think when it starts to calcify something, it's such a massive amount that you would have to like eat raw fluoride all day to have any calcification effects. And also, is it what?
But what's
in
the
my
benefit
mind,
though? Why is it there? If like
because it benefits cavities.
I don't think that's. I don't think.
What do
that's
you mean you don't? You buy into this? Do you buy into that conspiracy?
I don't buy into it, but I don't believe that
The maybe's
it's
big
there
enough.
in the water so that our teeth are healthy.
Why else would it be in there?
I don't know, but I don't think
The
like
fluoride
I don't.
lobby.
No, I don't have a theory on why it's
Right.
there, but I don't feel like it should be there or that it's there because of like teeth health.
I will tell you.
What I think
I will tell you,
Yeah.
I don't believe that it is calcifying my pineal gland. However, that being said, I almost never dream or remember my dreams. And so many times I'm like, if I stop having the toothpaste, am I going to dream? Maybe it is calcifying. Even though I don't believe it, I still have those feelings of like, oh, I wish I could dream. Maybe I should stop having Fluoride toothpaste. All the
I know,
dentists
yeah,
out
I
there
know.
are
I
like,
just
don't do
also
that.
I like more the flavor of organic fluoride free, you know,
It's pretty good. Like a
it's
like a
overall a
baking soda
better toothbrush. Yeah.
like a baking soda
Toothpaste.
based. Uh,
No, no, no. Maybe
what?
like
I love baking soda based, man. Arm& Hammer toothpaste. I love
I
Arm&
like that.
Hammer toothpaste.
I go more of like the mint or the tea
Shout out,
tree. Yeah.
yeah. Shout out to Arm& Hammer toothpaste. You guys are killing
Sponsor
it.
us. They need to
Sponsor
sponsor
us, Arm&
us. Yeah,
Hammer.
please.
Arm& Hammer toothpaste.
I would have to say the one great conspiracy theory that I don't think it's a theory, it's a fact, is that there's major scientific studies that are manipulated by money
Right.
and
Yeah.
lobbying, and that's why I'm so skeptic going into any theory or fact
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
new article that arguments that this is bad and it's been discovered that it does whatever. It just like
So what you're
in
saying
I don't
is,
know.
so what you're saying is facts are subjective and we can never trust a fact.
Oh, their facts are not at all subjective, but you can't just trust a fact because someone's like,
Yeah. But that's
even if
true.
it could be a scientist.
That's true.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The
But
and a really interesting book if you sorry to reference, you hate references. Bad Science.
no,
Bad
I love
Science. Bad Science is a great
that's
book. It's about the
mhm.
manipulation of studies and
Yeah,
all kinds of stuff in the pharmaceutical industry.
that's
But
crazy.
that's
And
real. That's real, and that's a thing that happens. And I don't think anybody
yeah,
would
we've talked
disagree.
about this.
I don't think anybody in the public would disagree that that happens. However, for some reason, that doesn't get the
But
name
it's
conspiracy. People don't label that as a conspiracy. They'll label JFK or whatever you want as a conspiracy theory.
mhm,
But
mhm.
but conspiracies are happening constantly, all the time. And it's just funny to see what gets labeled that and what doesn't get labeled that. And that is a
Yeah,
phenomenon that's super squirrely. I did want to mention just before the idea leaves, sorry to hold off on your point, is that I one of the things I love conspiracies for and watching conspiracy videos is one because it's fun and two because I think it's like rational exercising. It's like rational mind weight training.
right. You become like a detective of bullshit
Because as
while
you're
you're watching, of course.
watching it skeptically is an activity. It's so fun
Mhm.
because music and the manipulation of sound and talking heads with a title and like
Yeah,
and
true.
video you go like maybe like you feel it and then you have to go
And
like come on what
some of it is great storytelling also.
yeah
Like there is some great editing minds behind some of the most
totally
watched
yeah
YouTube conspiracy videos. Like great
yeah
editing, great storytelling.
yeah
I couldn't stop watching, even though it's all bullshit maybe. But I was gonna make the I super agree. I was gonna actually make the contradictory point, the opposite point, which is that that it's frustrating. It's fun, but it's also frustrating. For example, in nutrition,
yeah nutrition is
you don't know
impossible.
what to believe anymore.
Nutrition is
Like
crazy.
there's heavy scientists saying opposite things all the time.
Massive teams.
Massive teams of really what people with authority to say certain
Yeah.
facts, they contradict each other.
Yeah. And it's very it's almost like a political it's if you're typing Skype it's going to come up on the screen. Are you typing Skype?
Yeah, I'm just was doing a quick thing.
Should I change the screen? It's going to come up on the screen.
What? I'm sorry, what?
Okay, never mind. If you
Yeah.
what are we talking about? Sorry.
The conspiracy theories.
Yeah, the
Nutrition. It's so,
nutrition is
yeah,
insane.
it's crazy.
And the problem is, there's a couple things. Everything it's very team oriented. It's become very political. Everybody is very, it gets heated. The argument is heated. The teams are very passionate about their side, especially if it goes into other things like way of life, like the vegan movement. There's a lot of positive stuff about veganism. Please don't hate or boycott me or yell at me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it gets very heated. It gets very intense. The vegetarian versus non-vegetarian gets very intense. You've got the paleo. You got the
Yeah.
low
Yeah.
carb. You got the
You've
keto.
got the
You got
people
the
that
carnivore. You got the
the one diet
Atkins.
for everyone thing, and then
Yeah,
the
yeah.
everyone should have a special diet for themselves.
Yeah,
It's
and
like,
I think honestly, I will say, I think everyone is there are some principles that I think are across the board and mechanisms that occur in the body, but I think in general the effects of things are different for each person, and I do agree with that
yeah.
sentiment. I saw a
And
great
also the blood type. I've been reading
yeah.
that there's a lot to do with the blood type, and if you're better handling meat, if you're a certain blood type,
And
and
certain blood types have
that's
a
crazy.
propensity for less iron. I think there's a lot to do with
Mm,
that.
hmm.
So they might
Yeah.
need more meat's an easy way to get it, but I guess if you're a vegetarian, a different iron source. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, just I saw a good TED talk. I forget the name of it, but the guy basically they did a study, and maybe it's manipulated. Although I don't know who would want to pay for that study because it doesn't necessarily favor any industry. The point of the study was that uh, they measured the insulin response and glucose response of people over on different diets and different foods, and then they used AI to determine people's diet based on those results. It's super interesting. Uh,
Nice.
One of the things they found, though, across the board is most people's uh, response and insulin and glucose blood sugar response spike was higher on white rice than it was for ice cream for most people. Uh,
Okay.
so I think there are some things, consistency. How big was the sample size? Did they account for all the variables? What country was it in? Is there a genetic propensity for differences in glucose and insulin response? It's like I just contradict myself because there's so many variables that maybe it's impossible to get any fundamental answer about nutrition ever, and
Exactly.
and and
Hmm.
and some that frustrates me. And
Right. And we all want a simple answer, like you should eat this every day, and you're all done.
yeah,
But
and
it's
yeah, and also the thing that says that you need this every day is crazy. All of those things every day. Like now, one of the new ones is collagen. Collagen is a new hip
hmm
in thing where everybody's saying you need collagen every day
every
is a
day.
nice thing to, it's so much skin and the cells and all the everything uses it for various. And I just keep thinking about there's a good episode of Found My Fitness with Dr. Rhonda Patrick and Ray Cronice, who was on a 20-something day water fast, and he was testing his
Wow.
vitamin levels like throughout the fast, and there
hmm
was almost like the most minor reduction in vitamin levels across the board throughout the water fast. So the takeaway or the concept was our bodies have adapted, and this makes sense evolutionarily, I don't know if that's a word,
Yeah.
to to maintain function over periods of time without having to have an input of every single vitamin and every single supplement every single day, because throughout our evolutionary past we wouldn't have had access to all of these different nutritious sources every single day, so we don't need that. And I think that that's a really interesting argument. um, I think that that's a really interesting concept. I think we can
Yeah.
all, as a species, we can be eating less food less often and still be pretty good.
Of course,
um,
dude. There's a major waste crisis.
yeah,
That major food waste,
yeah,
and that's horrible, horrible thing because there's also major starvation. It's like, why are we not having a proper resource distribution on that?
yeah,
And I'm not saying we should give away food for everyone. I'm not saying that,
yeah,
but it seems like hunger should have been solved many, many years ago.
100%,
And
100%.
why do we have so much food waste and there's this major hunger crisis all over the world? And
I will say that in general, we have a large problem with obesity that's increasing while starvation is decreasing. And I guess that's a better trend,
that's much better, yeah.
even though some massive amount of people, I think the study I saw was just in the US, but some massive
Yeah.
proportion of the are
Also,
pre-diabetic and will be diabetic
in terms
is
of violence and security, we're doing also so much better. Like, I'm not just
right. Yeah. No, but I
saying it
totally agree.
to,
Why is there starvation?
why is there starvation?
Why does
Shouldn't
that
there shouldn't be
exist?
anymore? Yeah, right. Um,
Yeah, and just a quick nutrition an idea that I'm not advocating for. I'm not advocating for
I
is
hate
that
nutrition talk. Let me
it's yeah
just
okay. We can change
no,
it.
no, no. I'm not. No, I'm sorry.
Just one thing
I'm
that I was
just
thinking about was that because I mean I've been fascinated by the keto thing. The whole
yeah,
keto
yeah.
thing. I've experimented with that a lot. One thing that I think is this is an idea. I'm not advocating for this, but fast food and the cheaply produced food that we have right now is like designed perfectly for storing fat, for storing
Hmm.
and the fat reserves are there so that if you go in when you go into a state of ketosis, then you can utilize it in a very high energy and functional way. So you could still
Hmm.
hunt, you could still, function and
Right. So
think.
it's the body taking care of energy for the future in case we don't
Yes.
have more food.
Yes, it's
I just want to
storing
say
for
I
the future.
mentioned I
Yeah,
just mentioned I hated um, nutrition talk because I don't have anywhere solid to position myself in.
I
It's
know.
so crazy. Like you could
Yeah,
stand for something and then figure out that there's
yeah,
some new thing, and almost everything in nutrition it's like a war of opposites. And
yeah.
I haven't really done my homework and like being able to in some argument be like actually
Right.
right.
I have a lot of, I've done a ton of research and on different sides, and
Right, but then
I still don't have specific answers to anything, but I will say I have general principles that I think are accurate. And at some other time we could do nutrition talk. But
yeah,
my
sometimes I
quick,
go out of research with
yeah,
way more confused,
yeah, my
especially on nutrition.
and this comes from a person who I won't name the place, but I work a lot developing, working with a production team that makes videos for a nutrition person online,
Mhm.
and so I spend a lot of time having that on my mind, even and but just as a quick thought, just imagine we have these fast food and we have this processed food that is designed with the perfect ratio of fats and sugars, carbs and fats, so that it releases the dopamine and it stores insulin response, insulin spike, stores it in your fat stores so quickly because your body can't your liver can't process the glycogen fast enough, so it stores it away. This food is designed perfectly, and it's also the most satisfying. That's so the point is there's that mice study where they have mice they can give to glucose, and I think they'll sip on the glucose throughout the day, little bits of it, and if they give them all fat, they'll consume lots of it in small batches throughout the day, but in general they'll consume the same amount of calories. But if you give them a combination of sugar and fat, they will eat until they die. uh,
Wow.
but the point is,
What does that mean for us?
I'm not even gonna. But the point, what I was gonna say is, we know that a combination of sugar and fat stores it really quickly in your body. It stores the fat. So if
Hmm.
we were focused on alleviating starvation and being the most economical with our food, we would do something like have periods where we binge fast food, high carb, get a nice amount of fat stores, and then we would go into a state of ketosis and live with basically much less calories during the day because you have those stores. So basically you would have the population getting fat, slightly fat, putting on those calories. No, I'm not saying big. I'm just saying
No, yeah,
having
yeah, yeah.
resources and then having periods of time where they're
So
letting that burn off, having autophagy,
yeah,
dealing with, cancer mitigation,
you're
all the
saying
health benefits.
that's a good strategy.
I'm not saying implement it. I'm saying that would be a strategy that I
That would
think
be
would reduce, would have much less resources needed if that strategy was implemented, I think.
yeah.
And
I
yeah,
think though that it's very unpleasant to switch from carbohydrate and glucose
yeah,
energy consumption to fat
it sucks. Yeah,
consumption.
but I guess the more you
It's
do it, the easier it is.
the more you do it, the easier it is. But
Yeah,
it's still a challenge. It's still a great challenge to like
yeah,
have that switch. And most people can't go more than 5 hours without eating, or they get highly neurotic,
yeah,
highly anxious, and
right.
that's probably also, meat eaters tend to be more aggressive and more
Is
high
that
energy.
true? I don't
I
think
think
that's
so. I
true.
really think so. I think, I don't know. I think I've experienced that for myself. When I started eating red meat again after a long no meat time,
Yeah,
um, I did feel like I was more ready to go hunt, as
yeah. Well,
as a symbol analogy, of
that's your
course.
truth.
That's just my my experience, and
Yeah,
it could even, I'm not saying it's my truth, because
yeah,
it could be triggered by something else, and also I'm not mentioning how I was, feeding myself and complementing for the lack of meat. It
right.
also, that's like a great issue, and it's not only one variable that
And I'm
determines.
sure also psychologically you had decided a reason to be eating mostly vegetarian so that when you went back to eating meat, you had a concept about what the meat was. And so while you were eating it, you had this very distinct,
But
it was a
I
large
also
aspect.
think that, it's empowering to, I don't know. I'm just not gonna
We
go
can
there
move
because I
from,
don't.
let's move from
Yeah,
nutrition.
nutrition facts are crazy, are
Yeah,
crazy.
it's a crazy
It's
subject.
endless debate.
I will say,
But I think it's super important, because if you get health and nutrition right, then you get energy right,
yeah,
and there's also sleep.
yeah,
I think a lot of people are talking about how they eat and they don't have enough energy, or the other way around.
yeah.
But sleep quality, I think it's a major variable in this equation,
Yeah,
for sure.
and I just the last kind of footnote on this topic, I think that we need to consider food more like drugs. We need to blur
Or
the
medicine, like medicine,
yeah,
yeah.
we need
Hmm.
to change the mind, the kind of perception of food as drug, and to really think about. I don't mean
There's a
and
great book.
I
It's
don't
actually
think
called Food as Medicine,
right.
Dr. Dharma. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow,
I'm mentioning.
you're suggesting a
Yeah.
nutrition book.
It,
But
I really think it's a great, guidelines for, starting to design your own
yeah.
food intake, as medicine, or as, designing your life experience through what you eat.
Right. And to finish the point, I don't think that I meant like when I say consume think of it as a drug, I think I just mean not like let's get super technical about how this might affect the physiology of the body when you take it in. Because that might have too many variables and affect people differently. I think I mean when you think of it as like when you have a knee problem and you take ibuprofen or something like that,
Mm?
you change based on what's needed and try different things based on what's needed. And I think that there is no there's probably things that will be more long term in terms of habits that are unique each person that is kind of a way of approaching food that's most beneficial for them as a long-term thing.
Mhm.
But in general, I don't think there's a this works for a long period of time, do this only. I think it has a lot to do with altering things as and being conscious and being very aware and making changes based on health and stuff like that, and not getting too
Yeah.
wrapped up in the team. um, you
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah. And
like
also, I think nutrition is a um, it's a young science, I might say, as a science. But I was gonna say that, the Ayurvedic tradition has been trying to map how food intake better serves certain type of person, and
mhm,
they call the doshas, and it's the composition of your physical body.
mhm,
They have mapped, like, there's this, you're this type or this type, and we all have all four types, but you have a dominant one. And they
okay,
have this facts, like, if you are, um, I don't want to get into, like, explaining the doshas, which would be weird, but
yeah,
if it may be the case that if you're this type of person, it's better for you to skip breakfast if you're not really hungry.
yeah,
Or if you're this type of person, you should definitely have an early, substantial breakfast so that you're more settled in yourself and can handle the day
right.
better.
Well,
But, like, there's all these different variables.
and that just specific thing that you mentioned, I think, is 100% accurate towards personality types and hormonal stuff going on. Because I know personally that if I'm in 100% ketosis, breakfast doesn't mean anything. I'm totally fine. I could go a full day without eating, and I feel fantastic. If I've been practice intermittent fasting a lot, then even if I'm on a more carb heavy diet, skipping breakfast often is still more beneficial for me. However, I am prone to high amounts of anxiety and stress and cortisol, and the relationship of those things and food tend to help people to have breakfast early in the morning. And that's a specific thing to those individuals who eating something in the morning can help prevent that adrenal cortisol and whatever else is going on that's increasing stress and anxiety. So there's a lot, and there's a lot to do with individual preferences, and there's a lot of truth, I think, in that
Yeah.
in that dosha.
The dosha
um
territory. And
yeah,
there's a lot of different ways to explain that, and most of
yeah,
them are non-scientific. But there's some people that talk about Ayurvedic medicine and
yeah,
the whole Ayurvedic tradition with very practical wording and
right,
some scientific literacy.
yeah.
Uh,
And
yeah, but
I don't know if this is transitioning the topic a little bit, but I find it interesting when we take wisdom from the past, call it whatever you want to call it. People will be like, "It's not wisdom, it's dumb." But if just information from the past,
yeah.
ideas from the past, approaching it and needing to translate it into like a modern scientific lens, I don't
Mm.
always think that that's necessarily the way to go about it, although it might help some people who are so scientifically minded to accept trying something that may benefit them.
It's also highly practical to do it. And, like, if you're talking about the chakras, and you don't want to seem like you're bringing up this fancy term that you just memorized, and, like, you could
Yeah,
easily say the Hindu map of the energy systems in the body, or, like, there's 100 ways to be more practical so that the other person can understand where you're coming from, and you're not like this
right.
fanatic guy that just discovered this tradition and is using these fancy terms, because
Yeah,
that just doesn't help to empathize, to have empathy with the with or have a proper conversation, because
Yeah.
if you bring it to a territory where it's like common language and it's practical,
Right.
it serves each other better, I think.
I totally agree. I think where I was going with the statement was that you can translate it, and there's a huge benefit towards meeting on common ground and common language.
Hmm.
However, the point I wanted to make was there, I think, is a lot of benefit. And what's interesting to the approach that you and I like to take when we look into something is to totally go in without trying to be without the messenger or the
So you don't translate right away. You need to immerse yourself and go.
yeah, and you don't necessarily go super skeptical. You don't
Yeah, of
necessarily
course. You're a
go
beginner. You're
and
yeah.
and maybe this goes back to the
Mm.
conspiracy thing because I mentioned watching skeptically, which is one way to do it. Which is one
Yeah.
way to do it, and the way that I usually do it, and that's maybe the more rational exercising part of it. But another way to do it
Which is super fun.
is to just go in and go along and really
Mhm.
really let yourself go there. You can
100%.
always change it later. You can always, no one's
And you
recording
enjoy the
the.
ride. And you enjoy the ride.
Yeah, you're not committing a thought crime, or it's so funny how people get very like rigid, like, oh, I'm not even gonna think that, or I'm not even gonna
Yeah.
explore that idea. And it's
Mhm.
like you're not, nothing's
It's
gonna happen
it's
to
very
you if
rigid.
you.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny.
Yeah, it's almost like people are scared that if they go there, they might believe it and then they won't go back. Or I don't know what the deal is, but uh, I mention
Maybe
that
it's just like
because
some of us are higher on openness and some people are not. So, but it's I guess what you're saying is if you're open while going into the thing and allowing yourself to not be just the skeptic, detective of
yeah,
bullshit, you go with the ride. I guess
that's what I'm
a
saying.
I
And
guess an analogy for that I've experienced is when I started to learn filmmaking and everything that went on behind the camera.
yeah,
There was like a maybe 3 to 5 year period where I couldn't watch a movie without my head rationalizing everything that had to be happening behind the camera
yeah,
for that shot to be real. So I couldn't immerse myself in the story, the fiction, because my head was coming up with all the non-fiction aspects of the filmmaking that
yeah,
was necessary to accomplish that, and it took me a while to just like stop noticing the lighting, stop noticing or trying to like imagine what crew members are behind, or if it was a dolly or a Steadicam
yeah,
or whatever. Just get immersed in the fiction and in the
right.
characters and in the story and like enjoy the movie.
I have a really hard time doing that as well. And I think that for me, it's because I'm thinking about the casting choices, what probably
Yeah,
went on,
there's so
why they
much
were cast.
information. Yeah.
Yeah, all just, I guess it's because we spent time in that industry or education in that industry or, and,
Hmm.
and it's like, I think art is a specifically horrible thing to have that happen to, where it's also, music, it's all of
Yeah,
those things. If you start working in it, it starts to lose that magic a little bit. It starts to lose that
exactly. And
that that
dude, you said magic. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah.
no, that's okay. um I
Exactly when you said magic, I was gonna say that, the magic trick example would be perfect.
that is
And
perfect, yeah.
the magic is in the reaction of the person that didn't know how the trick was made. That's where
Hmm.
the magic happens, not in,
Hmm.
and as soon as you get involved in the actual mechanics of it and you understand how the trick works, there's no magic. It's even funny. It's like, oh, it's dumb now.
Yeah,
It's so stupid. It's like
yeah,
I personally hate that, and like that's one of my just common phrases to go to. Like the magic is in you right now, not knowing and being amazed. So don't even ask me for that trick.
Yeah, I think
I think that's
yeah,
yeah.
I'm working I'm working on my ability to just enjoy movies.
Hmm.
It's hard. It's hard. Honestly, what's become really funny is that the movies that I can most relax and just go along with the ride in are the most like mainstream, non like just, shitty movies that there's so much bullshit going on that it's like it overloads and then I just stop I
Yeah.
just don't even try. Whereas if it's something that I'm like invested in and really care about watching, or it's something that's important, things will ruin it more impactfully for me. Like if I think about
Hmm.
something in a certain way, it's more personal when I get pulled out of the movie. If that makes sense.
It does, yeah, for sure. I struggle with that. Every
Yeah,
single time I watch a movie, I need to like let go. And I guess
we
with
got black screen.
more, oh, wait, it's a 10, 9, 8.
Anything can happen on a spoken openness podcast.
This is a great time for a sponsor. You want to go ahead and, oh, we don't have any sponsors yet. I'm sorry.
This episode is brought to you by Arm& Hammer toothpaste,
And I'm
mainstream
back.
movies, and conspiracy theories.
Nice, nice. It was fast. It was fast. Um, yeah, so movies. This is a great subject that we arrived on. I
Yeah,
think
I don't have a big inspirational well of stuff to talk about, but
it's just flowing. We're ending up places we didn't plan. We never planned what we talk about.
anything can happen on a
Which is
spoken openness
great.
podcast.
Yeah.
Get
Okay.
abducted by aliens.
Alien abduction is a thing to talk about. Maybe some other time.
100%. Alien abduction is great.
How are you feeling? How's energy construction stopped, which is great.
It did stop. Yeah, I'm curious to see how this microphone recorded, just to know maybe it's a better sound. This is an SM57 here.
Nice.
Before I was using an AKG sort of pencil condenser that I was using
Hmm.
Phantom power. It's got a lot of power and it picks up a lot in the environment a little bit more. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I think there's a little bit less
it's
popping
great.
on this one, but I got to put the gain up really high. So
Hmm.
my energy's not bad. It's not bad. I can flow for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna talk about um, sleep, because when we were talking about nutrition, I quickly mentioned that I think sleep is a great mm, variable that, it. I think it's a. I don't know how to approach this actually,
Hmm.
um, because I don't think. Okay, here's the problem.
Okay.
um, Designing sleep
Hmm.
may actually be more important than designing food intake. Because I found that I could maybe eat shitty
Hmm.
and still be high energy throughout the day. But if I get a bad night,
Hmm.
I'm just done.
Hmm.
Of course, it's just me personally, but I'm sure a lot of people would agree on this. And
Totally.
we think a lot more about how we eat than about how we sleep.
Yeah. I forget the book. There was a guy on Joe Rogan's podcast recently who was fantastic sleep.
The neuroscientist, dude, I
Yeah,
saw that.
that was awesome. Yeah,
Forget the name. That was awesome. Yeah.
pretty cool research about
Mhm.
like really quantifying how much not getting enough sleep affects you and all
And
that
even
stuff.
though he's a neuroscientist, he was really open to some crazy ideas about dreams,
That's
and
true. Yeah.
it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. I do you remember your dreams? Do you dream often? What's your dream situation?
My dream situation is I stopped caring about dreams like
Okay.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
So my fascination on them decreased because there was a period where I was very immersed in them, and
Hmm.
it's hard to maintain a balance. Usually I'm so visual in my understanding of things that I do have dreams that have a lot of meaning to me.
I think a lot of, yeah, and
And
I think dreams do have a lot of meaning for
I,
most people.
yeah, hmm but I stopped recording them and stopped trying to. I used to do the whole thing where
Yeah, you were really into it.
I even fell asleep repeating, I will remember my dreams when I wake up, and it
Yeah.
did have a great impact.
Yeah.
There's it's dreams
Dreams are
are
crazy.
crazy.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to know, I would say that I remember having a dream maybe twice a year.
Okay.
Maybe twice a
Okay.
year. How often do you?
I do remember that I dreamed last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember like very very basic, like maybe I wake up and I dream of this person, or
Yeah.
and this was said, and maybe that's it, and like maybe the most
Yeah.
basic aspect or the craziest aspect I kind of remember, and it's like a distant memory.
Yeah,
But
it's a weird feeling.
yeah, but I got to the point where it's crazy because
You were trying to get into
it
lucid
gets
dreaming.
real.
You were deep in. I
It
remember a
gets
couple of years ago.
it it it's experiences that you need to process to you need to think about them
Yeah.
and try to understand them and what they mean, or maybe not the actual meaning, because there's many layers of meaning, but you get very, or I get very obsessed with, why am I dreaming this? What does this mean?
Yeah.
I need to think about this. I need to reflect on this. And it becomes a necessity, and it becomes like something I need to process. So it takes mental energy throughout the day to like be recalling, why did I say this, and how, like it's endless. It's really endless.
Yeah, I think there's totally a lot of credence, or I think there's a lot of truth in there being inherent meaning in dreams related to a person's psychology and what's happening in their life. Just reading Jung, it really makes it seem like it's very logical the way that it's talked about. And um,
Yeah,
I
Freud
think
talked about.
I just wanted to say that I think that and this has a lot to do with placebo and has a lot to do with um, maybe some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, but that regardless of whether or not there's inherent meaning in dreams to that person, the act of questioning what potential meaning might be there is going to bring up answers in yourself that are related to your life that may be beneficial. So it's almost, in my mind, it's like it doesn't matter if you don't believe, if you think it's a random production in your mind of images, that's cool. If you think that it's just your brain activity, that's fine. The process of you going, well, hey, what might that image mean in relation to my life and what's going on? You're going to generate some sort of answer that will, of course, have meaning to your life, because you're shining a light on something, and
Mhm.
you're making it in the forefront and thinking about how something might be affecting you. So I just wanted to put that out there as like, I think
Yeah,
that
but
it's
do you think that you could easily just fool yourself into some meaningless meaning that you think it's super meaningful?
um
Or are you
I
saying,
don't think there's any meaningless meaning. I think if something feels important to you, then it's meaningful. I don't think there's something that could
Mhm.
be.
But you could be fooling yourself into thinking it's meaningful because of just some fascination towards some subject, or um,
Okay, there's a difference between I saw in my dream, I saw a license plate that had a this on it, and so therefore I think I need to buy a car, or I'm gonna get a car, or someone's gonna. I am not talking about that. I'm talking about something related to your memories and your life experience. So if you saw in the dream,
Okay.
if you saw a dream where this guy was road rage, and then something happened, and then you're like, I think this
Yeah.
happened a couple of years ago where there was road rage, and that's funny that that happens to me, and I should consider that moving forward in my life. So like,
Mhm.
associating images to experience of your life, and maybe making messages for yourself that could be beneficial. I see that as meaningful. I don't necessarily think
Totally.
that like,
Yeah.
you're finding hidden messages, or what I'm talking about. I think there's a distinction, but that's the meaning I'm
There
talking
is.
about.
So it's both and. I mean, you could
Yeah.
both find some weird meaning that it's only meaningful to you.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, there's this basic guideline where no one really can tell you what your dream means. You're the only
Yeah.
one
It's your truth.
through. Even though I do believe in arch arch
Archetypes?
archetypes
Yeah.
and the universal language underlining all dreams,
Mm-hmm.
I do also believe that there's this aha moment. I think it's called the aha of recognition,
Mm-hmm.
where you're like, of course, this is what this was. And
Yeah.
that's the most valuable thing. I think that if you get that,
Yeah.
you should kind of listen to that and go with that. Because the dream analyzer could have a very high understanding of archetypes and symbols and tell you this was that specific thing,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't really know you. They don't really know
Yeah.
your mechanisms.
Yeah.
And so through the aha of recognition, you
Mm-hmm.
can go like, this is,
Uh-huh.
and dude, that's a great experience
Yeah.
to have that sort of personal insight out of a dream. And I do believe that there's a lot of healing that can be done personally with dreams, and you can save yourself a lot of time and maybe a lot of money on psychologists if you through dreams try to understand yourself better, which is super tricky,
Right.
super time consuming, it's exhausting,
Yeah.
but it's a mystery that is fascinating. It has so much potential.
Yeah. And I guess the only caveat I'll have to that aha moment is uh, if you I think when it becomes predictive, or like when people, that's when it's, I think there's definitely standards for when it's about understanding yourself. I think it's super important, and I agree that that's an incredible practice that could benefit you in many ways. Um, but I think it gets lumped in with people who are like trying to uncover messages about, what I'm talking about, that aren't,
Yeah, yeah.
they'll be like, aha, that meant that I don't have to worry and that I should do this, like maybe more astrology type
Sure.
reactions to
Yeah.
dreams, and it gets coupled in with that. And then
Exactly.
if someone says like, oh, I'm analyzing dreams, people are like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
were talking about dreams and I'm sorry, movies.
Yeah.
And movies are very like dreams.
Yeah.
But I think that when you have, but dreams are sometimes way more archetypal, and also movies that tend to be more symbolic. I think that's a better term.
Hmm.
They don't get as much engagement. They become like cult movies. I'm thinking maybe of Jodorowsky, very symbolic, very archetypical movies.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that fiction that has or drama where you have characters that are fictitious, but they're like the average Joe or whatever.
Yeah.
They serve as a link between the very abstract, which is a symbol and the archetype, and the very specific, which is this person with these characteristics,
Yeah.
and so that it's more approachable.
Right.
And maybe when you're dreaming, this is this is a theory that I'm coming up with
Yeah.
as I speak. Maybe while you're dreaming, you're making a symbol or an archetype more specific to you, so that you can understand it in your own terms.
No,
Um,
yeah, I totally agree.
Something like that.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think that movies follow archetypal patterns of storytelling where when you are dreaming, you're not necessarily in an archetypal storytelling pattern, but the images are still charged with the archetypal meaning that's embedded throughout history. So I think it's totally it's a personal narrative that I don't think necessarily it like movies mostly follow the hero's journey mostly, and it's like archetypal patterns of things that happen, and the images are deeply rooted in the past. But when it's your dream, it's a lot more abstract and random, seemingly random, and it's much more connected, I think, to the more related maternal unconscious, the unknown, feminine, like chaos version, whereas
Hmm.
movies are sort of more ordered, purposeful, deeply ingrained archetypal images that follow a similar pattern, whereas your dreams are like fireworks of maybe unrelated things that are intermingling. Like there could be something here that's like a, maybe to go back to the car, there might be a car that is being generated by an archetype that's influenced by a memory, but the color of the car is something completely unrelated based on archetypal color
Yeah, I get it.
things that's
Mhm.
of a different something in your life. And it's like,
Sure.
whereas on film, the car and the color would have been designed for one reason, for one
Okay,
specific purpose.
yeah. Um, I agree, but not completely,
I
because
could
I
be
could
wrong.
argue
I'm
I could
spitballing.
no, I know, and I'm
Yeah.
coming up with an argument like to get the conversation flowing where you're not 100% right.
Yeah.
So that
Hey, just
hey,
agree
hey.
with me, bro. Just agree.
Because, for example, you may have nothing in relation with the producer, director, creator of the movie,
Yeah.
and you could be watching an actor who you've never seen before, you don't empathize with, and the culture of the movie is very distant from your own culture. But then you in your dreams, you can't at all make up new faces, for example. You can't, maybe I'm wrong, but as far as I'm concerned, you can't create, or you can't meet someone new in your dream. You can't, even if you see
You
someone
can.
pass by,
You can.
you can,
Yeah, I think you
yeah.
can. Yeah, I think you can.
I think it may be a fact that even if there's like a random face, you've seen that face before. And
Mm,
if there's this car that has this color, it's
yeah.
because there's, of course, it's a lot of randomness, but there's also a lot of connections to be made personally in the dream that you can't
Yeah.
make in some crazy guy's film,
Yeah.
um,
I
because
would.
your dreams are like, maybe dreams are more abstract
Yes.
than movies with a specific narrative.
Hmm.
But if you try to analyze it and to find meaning in it,
Yeah.
there's maybe a lot more connections to be made in your dreams than in some random movie that's not very close to your own culture.
Yes. No. We definitely. in my current state and my positioning, I don't think I can't disagree with that. I mean, I can't
But
disagree. I agree with you. I agree with
the
you.
face fact made you
The face
I
thing,
made the
yeah,
wrong
I think you could
form.
generate from 1,000 eyes that you've seen, from the millions of faces you've seen. Your brain is it's like, say it's something that's rooted in like deception, and you're seeing a face of deception. Your brain could take every single face that you've related with deception and amalgamate it into this like universal representation of faces that you associate with deception that isn't one face. It's like that creation that's assimilated by the unconscious like chaotic engine that generates dreams. But
Yeah, maybe this is something that I would like to maybe do some more research on and maybe
yeah,
touch back and play with it because that you mentioned the I would like to know what the name of this guy that Joe Rogan interviewed, the
right.
neuroscientist. But one main idea that I really stuck and I had to think about that for a couple of days is that he mentioned that if because of some substance use or maybe some trauma, sleep deprivation, you don't go into REM sleep
Mm-hmm.
and you're just skipping REM sleep,
Yeah.
the brain will kind of have a history of all that you've skipped and go through that and kind of make up for the lost REM sleep that you've had, and it knows how much you've missed.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that points to the importance of dream and the importance of it's I think it's called the dream rebound or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. A lot of people get it because of many different
Mm-hmm.
um, reasons, but the main thing is that if you skip REM sleep, the brain will keep a history of how much you've missed and then make up for that.
Hmm.
Um,
If that's true, then I'm in store for 20 years of nonstop dreaming. um,
yeah,
this is a topic I'd love to. I mean, there's a lot to talk about with
there's a lot
dreams,
to
even though I barely have any experience with them because I don't have them. Hashtag give me more REM sleep.
please.
Um, I think my energy's fading a little bit. How are you feeling? I could maybe
Too,
do with some
yeah,
food.
yeah, yeah.
This
Think
I can't. It's almost been an hour it's an hour
and
40
50, yeah.
47 minutes. That's crazy.
Mhm.
I will.
I think this is around our perfect timing. We've done
Yeah.
some 2 hour, 1 hour and a half.
It seems to be like 150, not even 2 hours.
Yeah,
It's like 150 is like kind of the magic time.
exactly. It's a sweet spot though. Yeah, it's
I will say YouTube, I think, might have dropped. So I'm gonna check that out as soon as this ends.
all right.
But thanks for another fabulous discussion on various topics.
Yeah, this was fun. I think we were more playful with ideas this time and
Yeah.
kind of approached different topics in a more fun way, maybe. I'm not saying it wasn't fun before. I'm saying I had fun and